So when it comes to the NBA, not only the game itself is evolving, but also the league. And the Oklahoma City Thunder are the perfect reflection of it. In this segment, we're going to get into a nice little bag right here, as this is multi-layered, as we'll hear from a couple NBA players on how today's game is a lot different. Teams don't necessarily have traditional point guards like they once did. Almost every single player on the floor is a major decision maker who generates offense. That's why I stated Oklahoma City Thunder is a perfect reflection of where the league is headed today. But first, we're going to stick to the Thunder. As Kendrick Perkins and Richard Jefferson reflected, of which trade should go down as the worst, the Paul George trade to the Clippers or Luka. Keep in mind for Steve Ballmer, at the time in 2019, making that move for Kawhi was no doubt for him to have a big fish in order to secure not only the stadium of Intuit Dome, but the land that it sits on. He was in negotiations with the city of Inglewood right down there by USC in downtown Los Angeles. He was really trying to get the land, and having a big fish like Kawhi as the face of your franchise definitely helped. And for the Dallas Mavericks, a team that should be competing for NBA championship for the next few years when they had Luka, with this trade, it put them in a tough spot, as now all their rivals who are already good are now in a position to gain their draft picks going forward. The Thunder has swap rights with the Mavs in 2028. The Houston Rockets with KD and Şengün over there cooking has the Mavs pick in 2029. And the Dundada of it all, Wemby and the Spurs, who are definitely on the come up, have swap rights with the Mavs in 2030. So the fellas definitely spoke on it. You guys check it out. And every once in a while, I'll check in.
I will say this is that like if you're looking at the history, now that Shea's won an MVP, now that Shea's won a championship, they now it's solidified. We talk about the Luka trade and what that will mean. Well, last year, as far as I'm concerned, if you look back revisionist history, at this point in time right now, you would most likely look at the Clipper trade worse than the Dallas trade for Luka, in my opinion. You would look like people understand this.
For sure.
Because Dallas also ended up getting Cooper Flag.
Not only Dallas end up getting Cooper Flag, but also the Clippers trade end up showing that SGA is a proven product, not only winning the regular season MVP, but also the finals. And all this is coming off a prior season where he had his team sitting at the top of the Western Conference. Another thing that we should really pay attention to with the Luka trade is that for the first time, we're going to see if an NBA franchise like the Lakers could actually build a championship contending roster with him already being on a super max deal. Luka, I believe in 2 more seasons, will qualify for the 10-year Supermax, which he'll be earning over $70 million a season. And under these new CBA rules, these franchises have to be damn well near perfect, landing on the supporting cast to put around that Supermax player. I'm not talking about a regular Supermax. I'm talking about the deal that only players like SGA, Jokic, Luka, and Giannis, you have to be on that level to get their version of the max. And that soon will be over $80 million a year, reaching up to even $100 million a year by 2028, 2029. So again, because of the new rules and the major tax penalties, teams don't want to end up like the Phoenix Suns, having all that money in their books, but yet they can't improve the team through trades or even free agent pickups. You're exempt from what type of mid-level exception players you can get, and even the current players on your roster. Guys like Grayson Allen, if you re-sign them, by the time you include the difference in the tax with the additional money of the re-sign, you're looking at an acquisition that's almost double the cost. The Suns were nearly paying double the money for Grayson Allen. This is where the new rules right here get fucking spooky.
Right? Because of the results of that trade, they ended up getting Cooper Flag, where OKC ends up getting, I think it was J-Dub, and they got Shea. Shea's won an MVP and won a championship, so boom, that's stamped. That stamp is like, you gave up a finals MVP, a future MVP.
They probably got shit too, RJ.
I'm just saying from that.
Now that I'm thinking about it. No, I'm just saying you're right.
Like,
I'm just thinking
Shea doesn't get the love that he deserves. Shea doesn't get the love.
Yeah.
Shea is an iconic once-in-a-generation player. That's facts. His consistency, his numbers, his performance. we gloss over because it was multi-years back before he was that dude. But a lot of people thought he had potential to be very special. They just didn't know how special. Well, he's shown them how special he is. So now when you look back on it, it's like, hey, yeah, they traded Luka. Luka still has to go get that Finals MVP and championship, which we believe he will. But Shea's already done that to prove that that trade, was.
Can you tell me one thing Lawrence Frank has done that was right? Because you got to think, you gave up Norman Powell. You went and got Kawhi. You went and got PG. You went and got James Harden. You went and got Bradley Beal. I'm just saying, as an organization, no decision they've made over the last 5 years has panned out.
Signing T. Lue.
Not one. Signing T. Lue. And guess what? And here's the truth. They signed T. Lue because the Lakers at that time didn't want to pay T. Lue those 3-4 extra years. But look at T. Lue's record with the lesser talent is better than when you start adding these players like Kawhi, like James Harden, or like Bradley Beal and those guys. So, to me, T. Lue is a good coach when you get players that buy in. About the young teams balling this year that are buying into what their coaches is believing. The Raptors, the Suns, the Blazers, obviously OKC, Orlando, Detroit. Those guys buy into what their coach is talking about. This team, the Clippers, don't buy into anything.
You talk about a big fuck you. This is one of the biggest fuck yous in NBA history, what SGA is showing to the Clippers right now. Matter of fact, you drafted that young man with a lottery pick. We're watching greatness right now live in effect when we watch SGA.
We definitely are, but I don't think Steve Ballmer minds it because at the end of the day, securing the land in downtown LA was really his goal. It's interesting because these new crop of NBA owners, ironically, that involves this SGA as well as this Luka trade. New owners that are coming in really have other ambitions outside of the team. The TV money for the whole league is set, so every team is earning a certain amount of money, especially with that rev share. But now the business model is beginning to pivot, where owners could build an ecosystem around the arena. Look at the Golden State Warriors. They're getting revenue from commercial real estate and also fine dining, shopping. All that money that they're making within their ecosystem doesn't have to be shared with the NBA. So these are interesting times because at the end of the day, the end goal for all of this is eventually owners having a team in which, sure, they're making revenue off the basketball team itself, but they want to have hotels, casinos, shopping, commercial real estate all around the arena. And as the NBA continues to globalize, they're going to have fans already flying in. They're going to stay in the hotel, which will be in the same property as the arena. Then fans get to go around shopping, hit the slots in the casino in the same area. Then at the end of the night, cross the street and go check out the game. This is how the end goal is really shaping up to be for the current crop of new NBA owners. All that winning the championship shit, like from the Lakers' previous owner, Dr. Buss, who set that standard for that franchise, that shit is out the window. Patrick Dumont and his family, when it comes to the Mavericks, they have ambitions for a casino. And the Dallas Mavericks is really a means to justify the end. The same thing for Steve Ballmer. Kawhi Leonard is really a means to justify the end. He needed that figurehead, a large face, because in that same offseason, he was already in negotiations with the city of Inglewood to acquire that land in downtown LA. I mean, sure, to us basketball fans, this trade looks stupid as fuck. But when you start looking at the financials and the money side, if any of us was making that kind of money, I doubt that we will give a fuck about, what did Steve Ballmer say? The Larry O.B.
Matter of fact, you drafted that young man with a lottery pick. We're watching greatness right now live in effect when we watch SGA, right? Like when you talk about point guards, you talk about legacies. I mean, he's that combo type guard, 6'6", but I mean, he's starting to give me Kobe, Jordan type vibes. Here's why I say that, and I'm gonna end on this. He leads the NBA in made 2-point jump shots and shooting 54% from the field. 91% of his shots is contested. It's contested.
And they tell you this is a 3-point era. Once again, Jimmy Butler made the finals 2 times between 2020 and 2023. Jokic, another mid-range shooter, he's won an NBA championship in 2023. You got SGA in the Thunder in 2025, and you even have Giannis in 2021. The only 3-point shooting teams you could really say that won a championship is the 2022 Warriors and the 2024 Boston Celtics. Hell, even Kawhi Leonard in 2019, he won an NBA championship, and he's all mid-range. So when they tell you the mid-range is dead, you got to take that with a grain of salt.
Do you know big men don't shoot fucking 54% from the field, and they're shooting floaters and layups and jump hooks around the basket? And again, man, when you just look at what SGA is doing, what he's done, his resume, he's steady on that climb. And I believe if he keeps this up at this rate in the next 5-6 years, we talk about what Jokic ranks for as all-time great centers. What does Giannis rank all-time power forwards? In the 5 or 6 years, we're going to be having that same conversation about SGA and where the hell he ranks when it comes down to point guards.
Hey, Pastor Perk is preaching right there. And when he ended that soliloquy calling SGA a point guard, he had his fingers up signaling quotation marks, point guard. That right there really puts the current transition that the NBA is in under a microscope. The chapter of the small ball era, that page is definitely beginning to turn. If you look at a lot of the teams today, they don't necessarily have a traditional point guard. There's a lot of decision makers on the floor that's generating offense. You could look at the New York Knicks, the Houston Rockets, the Minnesota Timberwolves. Shit, even Cade Cunningham and the Detroit Pistons. A lot of these teams have a very similar archetype to the Oklahoma City Thunder, and this is not by accident. The Orlando Magic with Franz and Paolo Banchero. Even the Atlanta Hawks with Trae Young being out. Look how Jalen Johnson as well as Zachary have the Hawks playing. So we are starting to see small signs of a transition. And with that happening, even though Stephen Curry is performing at a high level still, the Golden State Warriors in the past couple seasons have consistently been hovering, being around the middle of the pack in the Western Conference to sliding down to the 7th or even 8th seed. Matter of fact, right now, as I speak, they're currently the 8th seed. A very high IQ former point guard for the Boston Celtics, Rajon Rondo, has spoke on this. You guys check it out, and every once in a while, I'll check in.
The definition of a pure point, want to make your teammates better first and do all the little things and then scoring when needed. We've seen an influx this year with like the Houston Rockets not starting a point guard, Cooper Flagg starting.
Bucks.
Bucks. Dallas, Phoenix, teams that are good. I think obviously with the Houston and Dallas is riddled by injury. You guys are trying to figure it out. But thoughts? Is that a true statement? Do you think you can win it without someone who's really running the point these days?
I think the Thunder just did it, I believe. But for me, I think it's the level of the IQ of the team overall. And then a lot of teams don't have the IQ of the Thunder organization or like the Houston Rockets, with
AKA the New Orleans Pelicans. You see them trying to run the same system. They don't have a traditional point guard, but at the end of the day, they don't necessarily have good decision makers on that team. For the most part, they got Zion running point forward almost 24/7. That's when he's healthy. Think about that. He's barely healthy. And when he's there, he's the one that's running point forward with barely any chemistry.
A lot of teams don't have the IQ of the Thunder organization or like the Houston Rockets, with Udoka. I think it's primarily with him, how he's allowing guys and how they're able to understand and execute the game plan. Because a lot of teams that I'm watching and seeing when I'm watching the film, it's like they need a point guard.
Yes.
They need someone that can run the show. And even like the game one, I believe, when the Thunder and Houston played. You need a point guard like, hey, KD didn't touch the ball. So I know if I'm in the game and KD didn't touch the ball in 8 possessions, you need a point guard. So it's like a coach can only do so much. You're managing so many different things. And a point guard is the extension of the coach on the floor. So it's like when you're not executing, when you don't when you come down and run 2 sets in a row, and then the third time you try to go away from it, a point guard understands to when and where to get guys the ball.
Yeah, I think of Houston when I think of this because it's Sengun and KD getting the ball out of their spots. They're great players. They're gonna make it happen. But to your point, knowing when to get them the ball in their spots to make them be the most effective. Although they're one of the highest scoring dudes, but you see late in games, that's not necessarily either of their forte in their career. They usually got to their spots, and then that's when they're some of the best in the world.
Now, it's not only going to be interesting to see Amen Thompson's rise, but also with the Houston Rockets, in crunch time moments, that pick and roll with KD and Sengun, that shit is kind of deadly. But we'll continue to see how that evolves during the season.
So, yeah, I definitely still feel it's important to have a point guard just for everything you said, but it'll be interesting to see. To your point, not everybody has a high IQ and understand the game the way those OKC guys have been able to buy in.
Hey, that Isaiah Hartenstein addition is paying dividends for the Thunder. Not only he gives them the size that they need, he also is making great decision in the short roll, doing dribble handoffs, his positioning, knowing when to cut. He's spot on and he fits like a glove within that rotation. But again, as they stated, the IQ is going to be important because teams like the Pelicans, the Chicago Bulls, the Sacramento Kings, even the Charlotte Hornets to a degree, they are definitely struggling with this, as those teams not only don't have a traditional point guard, but they also don't have 5 decision makers that are reliable, because for the most part, they have a lot of inexperienced players. But we do see the evolution because all the teams I just listed is definitely more than half the league.